Well, hey folks, it's been a while. The lighting in here is not very good, but I just scored a find at a thrift store the other day. It's something I've been looking for a while. I never wanted to buy one on eBay because they tend to be a little expensive. But check this out. What I got right here, that's not it. What I do have right here though is a Griswold number 7, and it's got 701 on it. From my research, that tells me it's one of the first production runs. These ones I believe were made from 1939 to 1957, but somebody really took care of this pan. It is in outstanding shape, just absolutely beautiful. All I have to do to it is literally just wash it and do a light reseasoning on it, and that's going to be a pretty good pan. I'm really happy I found that. Then here's a pan I've had for a while. It's a Wagner 10.5-inch skillet. My lighting is terrible, but this one needs to be cleaned up a little bit. And I don't know where I got this. I think maybe a yard sale or something, I'm not sure. But what I have here, this is a Lodge. It's one of these ones that's got some fancy casting on the back, and it's a modern cast iron pan, and quite frankly I hate them. They're not cast very well. Well, they're cast and they don't finish it. They leave the sand marks from the casting sand in it, so it's difficult to get these seasoned to where they're actually for real non-stick. And you look over here at this Griswold, the thing is smooth. So I'm going to put this in the oven, cleaning cycle. It'll take off all the old seasoning, quite a bit of the rust, and then I'm going to take it out here and I'm going to run it through a sander. I've got 80 grit, 120, 150, 220, and then I got some 320, and I'm just going to sand the bottom. I'm going to get that thing polished up nice and smooth, and then get this thing re-seasoned and see if we can't make a Lodge perform as good as a Griswold. That'd be pretty nice. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing in the oven, and I'll bring you guys back after it's pretty much all cleaned up and ready for the sanding cycle. See you in a bit. Alright, here's the pan after it came out of the self-cleaning mode on the oven. Got all the old seasoning off. There's a little bit of surface rust left. That was late last night. I really quickly wire wheeled the bottom and put a little bit of olive oil on it so it doesn't flash rust while we're doing the main project, which is working on the inside here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand the entire inside and get it smooth as glass, hopefully. I'll show you what I'm trying to achieve here. Here's the Griswold. If you scrape my fingernail on it, it's really smooth. And you come over this old Lodge. Well, it's not old, it's fairly new, but the way they cast them and they don't finish them, you listen to that. A lot of little pits on there from the casting sand. And what it does is it makes it very difficult to get it seasoned to where it's nice and smooth like this, and it's actually virtually impossible, and just creates a whole lot of extra surface area because everything's all bumpy and it's got all those little dips in there that you got to fill up with seasoning, and it just doesn't really happen. So to get this non-stick the right way takes literally forever and is almost impossible. So I want to get the inside nice and smooth like this, and then re-season it and test it out and see how well it does against this one. So I got my other camera set up here. I'm going to start sanding here. I'm doing I'm going to start with here. I don't know if I'm going to start with the 80 grit, maybe, but I'm going to advance all the way up 120, 150, 220. Then I got some 320, and that should be enough. If it's not, I'll run down to Harbor Freight and get some 600 grit and that should be more than enough to get nice and smooth. I'm not going to do the outer ridge. I'm just going to do the bottom, because that's the cooking surface. I'm not too worried about. I'm not cooking eggs up here on the side, so I'm going to get the bottom done. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this hopefully not too long sanding process. Okay, we're starting with 80. That was 120. That's got a long ways to go. Matter of fact, I'm going to start out with 60. Well, it looks like I got all the scratches out from the flap disc using basically a paint remover thing on my drill. Can't remember what it's called exactly, but then I removed the scratches from that with the 60 grit. Now I think I'm actually, yeah, I think I'm ready to go to the, what was it, the 80 grit, the next one? I'm probably good enough to skip that, go to 120. There's scratches in here from the 60 grit, so I need to remove those. Here. Yep. I'm ready to strap up a 80 grit. This brand of 80 grit looks coarser than the 60 grit I got. This is 60 grit Diablo brand, and this is 80 grit DeWalt brand. Yeah, I better skip this 80 grit. Yeah, 120 looks like the right step to go here. Start getting this thing polished up. All right, here we go with 150 grit. Let's see if we get a little bit more shine in there. That's getting that pretty good. You can still see some very slight imperfections there where the little valleys were just a little bit too low for me to get into without taking off a ridiculous amount of metal. But I don't think they're going to be a problem. See, the metal still needs to be a slightly porous so that the seasoning has something to bind to. So I don't need it to be a mirror, but it can be close to a mirror shine and still have a little bit of porosity. Is that the right word? I don't know. It's going to have some pores in there, some place where that seasoning can grab onto, and it's going to be quite the slick surface to fry an egg on. I think there's going to be a few more steps here. I'm going to keep going for probably another, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so with this 150 before I go up to the 220. Just to knock down a little bit more that I can see here that you can't see on the camera. And we'll keep it going. I feel a little bit more here I want to get, as well as right there. So another 20 minutes. I'm not going to film all of it, but I'll film some of it. I'll just speed it up for you. Well, that's about 15 minutes on the 150 grit. There's some slight imperfections there where I dug in a little bit too deep with that flap disc, but you can't even hardly feel them. But I tell you what, I'm so impressed with how well this is coming out that I gotta show you another pan. Here's another Lodge. I want to say this is a, I don't know, 12 or 13 inch one. I've had this for a long time. I bought this at a Cabela's in Montana in 2005. They had it for like 50% off. I couldn't resist. I grabbed it. This is the first cast iron pan I ever bought. And as you can tell how thick and nasty it is, it's been well used. And I'm going to give this thing the same treatment I'm giving this. Next video, though, we're doing this one this time. Next video, I'll do this one. And the next time, when I do this one, I'm going to skip that flap disc, this thing, And I'm going to go with this paint remover thing on my drill, which actually did a really good job of removing all the high points on the little hills and valleys in the casting, from the casting sand. So I'll skip the flap disc and do this. That way I can eliminate some of these little imperfections I'm getting on this one that are actually, honestly, they're not going to affect the finish. They're not going to affect the seasoning or how well the seasoning is going to be when it comes to being a non-stick pan. So look for this old crusty thing. I'm going to go actually go put it in the oven right now and put it on self-clean and get this thing all cleaned up so I can do it next. So hang on a second. Okay, we got the big old 12 or 13 incher in the oven, setting self-clean. And I think we're ready to proceed on with, what was I on, 150? Yeah, I was on 150. Let's go to 220 and see how that comes out. Looks like it's gonna, there's still plenty of little teeny tiny microscopic pittings in there and scratches from the sandpaper that the seasoning should bind quite well and be nice and slick. I like to be able to fry my eggs and be able to slide them across the pan like this. Then you know you got a non-stick pan without all the chemicals that come from Teflon. Oh, by the way, see this stuff right here? I used it on the back of this pan just to keep it from flash rusting. Don't use this spray olive oil as a seasoning. Why? Because it's not just olive oil. There was soy lecithin, dimethyl silicone for anti-foaming. It contains soy and also contains a propellant, which it could be anything. It could be air, it could be propane, who knows. So yeah, don't use this. I just use this because it's quick, easy, and fast to make sure I didn't have any flash rusting. I'll get that washed off with soap and water before I actually start my seasoning process on this pan. And I'll use 100% extra virgin olive oil. I'm not using anything else simply because olive oil gets squeezed out of an olive. It gets run through a filter and put in a jar. All those other oils like canola oil, avocado oil, all that nonsense, there's some chemical extractions going on in some of those, so I stay away from those. I'll just stick with what works and what's as natural as possible. So here goes 220. Well, I think that's it for the 220. We're getting close to what I want. So we're going to swap the 220 out, 220 grit, for some 320 Gator. Better be good. This pack of how many? Pack of 5 costs $12. So this stuff better perform. And I'm judging based off of how it looks right now that 320 is probably as far as I need to go, plus should go. because I need to make sure that there's still enough little scratches in there for that seasoning to bind into. So let's see what kind of a polish this puts on it. I think we're looking pretty good. I mean, you can see some reflection in it. I can't quite see my face, but I think we're good on that. So it's late tonight, so I'm going to call it quits for the night, and I'll pick it up back tomorrow. But I think I'm going to take a wire wheel after these edges here and hit them pretty aggressively just to smooth it out a little bit around the edges, the handle, etc. I'm not going to do anything to the back, I mean the bottom or the outside edges, because I don't cook on those edges. So we'll pick it up back tomorrow. Okay, here we are back the next day. I finished this up with 320 grit for this particular pan. I'm happy with that, and it's because I use that flap disc, and I got a little bit deep in a couple areas, and it's going to take a lot to get that out. So all in all, I think it's pretty good. The next pan I'll do, which will be that 12-inch, I'm going to actually not use the flap disc, and I'm just going to use this paint remover thing that's got some kind of abrasive qualities to it. There's something in there that works pretty good. So I'm going to try that in the next one. And I already completely cleaned that one out in the oven, and it's got a lot of rust on it, so I'll have to get that cleaned up before I start that one. But right now I want to go ahead and hit the sides really quick with the wire wheel, and then get it all washed up nice and clean, and then give it a good rub down with some olive oil and start the seasoning process. So we're going to start wire wheeling this thing. Shouldn't take too long. All right, I think we got it cleaned up pretty good. I'm gonna give it a quick wash just to get off a little bit of that extra ingredients in this spray can stuff that was on the bottom, and get a really thin coat of olive oil on it, and get in the oven and start the seasoning process. Okay, the oven's preheated to 400 degrees, and we're gonna start the seasoning process. You want to make sure you use a rag that's like 100% cotton. There could be other ways to do it, but this has always worked best for me. And then you want to put actually I'm going to do the outside first. So this has already been cleaned up, ready to go. The trick here is put some olive oil on there and get it all on everything. Get a nice layer. Get it on everything. All the way around. Get every last little crevice. Handle included. And then try to remove as much of it as you can. You want to have super thin super thin coating of oil for each step of the seasoning process. I might have to do, I'm guessing I'm probably gonna have to do about 3, maybe 4 coats on this thing. All right, now we'll get the inside. No, wrong oil, wrong oil. We want just pure olive oil. Now, some people use flaxseed oil. I'm using something that's not had any way any chemicals have been introduced into the oil at all. That's what I'm doing. And try to remove as much of it as you can. Just want a super thin coat. Nothing more. Okay. There we go. Now she goes in the oven upside down, 400 degrees. That's what I do it at. Some people do it 350, some 375, some 450. I do mine at 400 and for 1 hour. Then I'll take it out, let it cool partially, and at least to where I can handle it, and then I will put another coat on, another hour, another coat, another hour, and then we should be good, and we should have a nice amber color down here on the cooking surface, and we'll be ready to start cooking after that. Now the seasoning process does not stop at that point though. You want to keep seasoning it as you cook with it. Every time you cook, put some oil in there. Then when you're done cooking, wipe it all out nice and clean, and just keep going. And after some time, probably a few months, could even be a few weeks if you use it twice a day, and you will have a really super non-stick surface right there. So I'm going to stick it in the oven, set the timer for an hour, and I'll bring you all back. I'll show you the next step. All right, the first seasoning is done. Can you see that nice, maybe you can't, that nice amber color? So that first coating of olive oil has seasoned in quite nicely. Still need some more. I'm going to do 1 more coat on the outside, maybe two, I don't know. Might only need 1 more. But I'm definitely doing a total of 3 on the inside. So let's get 1 more really thin coat. Gotta open it up, don't I? 1 more really thin coat on the outside. Don't take much, folks. It really doesn't. This is one of those situations where less is actually more. And give it a good rub down to get any excess off. And we'll go ahead and get the inside real quick. And back in the oven for an hour it goes at 400 degrees. That should be more than enough, actually. Get that excess out of there. You basically want it to be fairly dry to the touch after you get that coat on there. All right, she's ready for the second round of seasoning. It should come out a little bit darker on this next one, but 1 hour at 400 degrees in the oven, upside down. Here we go. All right, so here we are. The second seasoning is done. Now it's time to do 1 more at least one more, maybe two, I don't know, but at least one more thin coat of oil on here and season it for 1 more hour. So as we did before, this pan's still a little bit warm. We'll do the back side, the bottom first. I need to remember to do that. I need to remember to open it up. Don't forget, you put it on, and then you try to take some of it off, the drier portion of the rag. Flip it over. I'm telling you, look at that. Look at that nice amber shiny color there. That's looking good. Oops, that's probably too much. All right, back to the oven we go for 1 more hour, and that should do it. And then we'll, in a later video, we'll do a test alongside my other pans, including that Griswold, and see how well they do. Okay, here's the finished product. This pan now has 3 full coats of olive oil seasoned into it. And pretty happy with it. Got a nice dark amber color to it. And I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to finish a couple more pans, and then we're going to do a side-by-side egg cooking comparison to see how they all come out and how they all perform. So there you have it. That's how you take a Lodge, a cheapo Lodge, dumpster fine in this case, cast iron pan, and turn it into a pan that's actually probably going to perform a whole lot better than the ones that still have that casting sand finish on it, where it's still rough and really hard to keep those from being non-stick. So there it is. I'll see you on the next video.